Yokwe, aloha, welcome to the Pacific Way. Pacific Islands are renowned as skillful handicraft producers. For thousands of Pacific people, it is a source of income, a way of life, and a necessity for survival. And women are at the forefront when it comes to making a living through handicraft. However, in times of natural disasters and climatic changes, their way of life is being threatened, affecting the most vulnerable in our society, our women and children. Now, in a concerted effort to find ways to protect and develop women in the handicraft industry, the Pacific Community, or SPC, is working with the government of the Marshall Islands to ensure women in the handicraft sector are protected through government policies and incentives, especially in times of hardship. This is the story of one such handicraft producer who continues to persevere against all odds.
Between 2015 and 2016, the Republic of Marshall Islands was severely affected by a prolonged drought. By May 2016, 21,000 people were impacted. Lack of food and drinking water took its toll on the people and affected their livelihoods. For many, their only sources of income were depleting. The production of handcraft was among the activities heavily affected by the drought. It was estimated to cost over $100,000 in losses, spread out across the 29 atolls. However, not all the handicraft producers sustained production losses. In fact, two of the small enterprises that export their products maintained their usual level of production and exports.
My name is Lucia Guaves, and I'm from Majuro, which is the capital city of the Marshall Islands. And I've been in business for almost 20 years, and we're doing like Elephant Handicraft Shop is located here in Majuro, Marshall Islands. I got into this business of running this shop. At first, it was like a part-time job for me in order to help my husband with all the tuition and what the family need. So this is how I started.
From humble beginnings, years of sacrifice and hard work, Lucia's family business has grown. Now she has 2 handicraft outlets and is providing employment for other women weavers. The Marshallese are renowned for their beautiful handicraft products. Made from the leaves of the pandanus palm, they are processed by the women in the outlying atolls before being crafted into delicate pieces of art, which are in high demand.
I think the distinctive feature of our handicrafts are the intricate weaving, which is, I think, is well known all over the Pacific for our weaving. It's kind of different from the other places that I've been to.
In 2012, the contribution of handicrafts to the gross domestic product in RMI was estimated at $1.5 million. However, as Lucia explains, there's not been much assistance provided to the handicraft sector, especially small entrepreneurs like her.
In order for the business to survive, I had to make personal loans all through the years in order for me to survive. I mean, the business, paying for all the taxes, and whenever there's a trade fair, off-island trade fairs, I have to make personal loans in order to be part of the trade fairs.
And while the cost of running her business continues to escalate, natural disasters and prolonged droughts are also having a huge impact on the handicraft sector.
Because of this climate change, we have drought and the soil got dried and they cannot grow the trees that they cut their materials to do the handicraft. So that's one of the problem. And people are moving because they cannot find ways of living. So they move to the center and they go up outside the Marshall so that they can look for better work, better living, better education, better medical. So that's one of the problems.
Now I have to
It's in times like the prolonged drought in 2016 that compels Lucia to take heed of the warnings, and she stores her raw material in advance.
I store my supplies all over the place. My living room, my house, whenever there's a space like over here, even though it's a small place and it's crowded, but still we manage to keep everything in a small place.
Women's economic empowerment is one of the most important driving forces behind economic growth and food security in the region. It also contributes to building communities' resilience to climate change impacts and disasters. This was the underlying theme as Pacific women leaders converged in Suva, Fiji, for the 13th Triennial Conference of Pacific Women and the 6th meeting of Pacific Ministers for Women in October 2017.
Women are very creative, and they, through their creativity and the work in selling crafts, they're able to support their families. So one of the issues that we're facing is making sure that we've in the Marshall Islands we've faced droughts in the past couple of years that has impacted on the supplies of for making crafts. And so when these things happen, the impact is on the women and the families because they live off of the crafts.
President Heine is at the forefront in ensuring women's needs are recognized and included in government policies.
Women make up, almost 50% of the population in all of these countries, and I think to the degree that they're engaged in economic activities for each of our countries, the better for that country. So we need to work with women, look at government policies that are barriers sometimes to women's economic empowerment. And so the whole discussion on engaging women as much as possible in economic development is very important.
Marshall Islands Ministry of Culture and Internal Affairs is working with SPC to revamp RMI's current policies to reflect the needs of women.
Coming out of from our Micronesia Women Conference and the Triennial, some of us that attended these conferences came back home and we started to discuss that we really need to focus more on cultural industries and especially promoting what the women of the Marshall Islands are doing in terms of handicraft. We will also be working with SBC, the Social Development Program, working in developing our cultural industry and the whole revamping of the culture section here in the Marshall Islands.
In 2015, the Republic of the Marshall Islands adopted their national gender mainstreaming policy, which identifies priorities for progressing gender equality. The policy talks about participation in decision-making, economic empowerment, the elimination of violence against women, and the well-being of the family. It also stresses the importance of integrating gender perspective across government policies and programs, thereby making sure that the concerns, needs and priorities of women like Lucia is reflected in the services and budget of the Ministry of Agriculture, of the Ministry of Finances, of the Ministry of Infrastructure and the Office of Disaster Risk Management, so that their need to maintain the sources of their incomes are properly addressed. And as we, as a region, move towards ensuring gender equality and women's economic empowerment, Lucia is optimistic.
The message for them would be, to speak out. And I'm sure the president, since she's one of the advisors for With Me, Women United Together Marshall Islands. She'll be there, she'll listen to what they're going through and all that. So speak up.
Welcome back. Forest fires cause millions of dollars in damage around Fiji's sugarcane belt each year. This not only damages existing crops, but impacts on future crop production. A series of 3 awareness videos on forest fires has been produced by the European Union and Pacific Community Reforest Fiji project. The videos highlight the dangers and impacts of forest fires and indiscriminate burning on Fiji's forests, the environment, on the health and livelihoods of individuals and communities, and on the country's tourism industry. This is the first of the 3-part series on the work being undertaken on the awareness and prevention of forest fires in Fiji.
The forest it encompasses a big natural resource. It's plantations, it's mangroves, it's the coconut trees that are out there. So when we say forest, and then we say forest in relation to fire.
Forests play a vital and important role in our ecosystem. We depend on forests not only for our survival, but also for our livelihood. In Fiji, forests cover approximately 58% of the land area and provide an important contribution to the economic, environment and cultural well-being of the country. Unfortunately, uncontrolled burning of fires in some parts of the country is a major concern that is threatening the survival of some of our remaining forests and ecosystems.
Burning fires is a very serious matter. People are very careless. They don't realize the damage brought on by fires and the long-term effect it will cause.
We will examine and explore the issue of forest fires in Fiji.
A National Forest and Rural Fire Management workshop to develop a framework for a national forest and rural fire management strategy for Fiji was held in Sigatoka, Fiji in November 2017. The workshop provided a space for various agencies, stakeholders, community representatives and government to raise awareness, share experiences and increase knowledge about forests and fires. The workshop was organized by Reforest Fiji project, funded by the European Union and implemented by the Pacific Community, SPC. The western part of the main island of Viti Levu in Fiji is much drier, and in the last few years not only has there been droughts, but with the changing weather patterns, forest fires have also increased.
The Nalatawa village, as you see here, then you have the Talasinga land. These are all the degraded areas that they've used for shifting cultivation, for farming. Then further out you see the edge of the forest. So the areas where the fire is going to destroy is bigger now, because it'll naturally die down at the edge of the natural forest.
The increase in indiscriminate burning has caused untold damage to pine plantations throughout the Western Division, which is now a major cause of national concern. Educating and awareness is important, and in some districts, they've taken a step further by appointing forest wardens.
I've attended 7 village meetings, and in each meeting a time has been set aside in the agenda for the forest warden. I inform the meeting on the effects of burning fires and tell them that frequent burning leads to harmful effects and that we need to break this habit of always burning. I request the leaders and head of the village clans to please tell their people the hazards of burning and the long-term negative effect it will cause.
For many communities, fires are needed not only for cooking, but also for clearing and land preparation before planting food crops.
Farming is it's for our livelihood, even though it's subsistent, but it's also for income source. And our way of farming, because of given the areas where we are, we'll always be planting on the hillside where there's no tractor that can work in that. There won't be any bullocks that can plow. So it will always require manual labor, which means land clearing will always be manual, and fire will always be the easier thing they resort to clear an area for planting.
Sometimes the use of fires to clear land can be devastating if not controlled, and can result in damage to water catchments, which in turn affects drinking water and the environment.
There are a number of harmful consequences, impacts. These include, of course, removing ground cover, killing trees. Our trees don't recover from fire very well like they do in Australia. Killing biodiversity, which is often unique to Fiji. And the removal of soil cover leads to a whole chain of events which can be very, very harmful in the long term. There is soil loss into the streams, ultimately into the rivers, which become shallower, so flooding is more easy to happen. And some of the finer silt goes into the marine environment, where if it's in contact with coral on a regular basis, as is often the case because the burning is an annual thing and it happens every year in the dry season.
There is no training on how to do for them to do control burning. You know, it's an easier way for them to clear a small area, but they don't have the knowledge and the skills to conduct control burning.
Fires are not only harmful to the environment, but to humans, animals, and forest-dwelling species as well.
And the other aspect which we've been perhaps not so aware of is the harmful effects to health. Continuous high level of smoke in the air, atmosphere, as happens during the dry season in some areas around the sugar mill areas, can lead to respiratory problems, particularly with people who have asthma, and this would include tourists as well. And then there's a loss of work time if they have to take time off. There's medical bills and also doctor's treatment. Then, of course, smoke produces emissions. And we're on record, and we're doing our best with many others in the world, and we're taking a leadership role to reduce emissions. But in addition to producing emissions, we're removing the very trees that can naturally absorb those emissions.
For the village of Nalotawa in the district of Yaquete, the message has gone through and burning has ceased. The community now realizes the harmful effects of fires, not only on the environment, but to themselves as well.
There are now no more fires in the areas that I look after. Many have heeded what I have been advocating. We have also noticed that some birds that had disappeared after the fires are now returning. We are all part of nature, and the birds are important to us. Now, laws are in place to prosecute those causing fires. I work closely with the village headmen, and I tell them if anything happens, call me.
Please don't forget to check out our latest news and videos on the Pacific Community YouTube channel and the Pacific Way Facebook page. Until next week, salute, tapo, modemanda.